Story 1. Well, I am Swedish, so I would go and buy a car to drive to the little town of Älmhult. There, I would try to find a certain young man named Ingvar Kamprad to tell him I like his ideas of mail-order furniture and that I would like to invest in his business. Give it a few years for it to take off here in Scandinavia, and I should be making my money back. I would say the biggest issue is it being dollars. But thanks to Swedish education, I am also fluent in English, so maybe I will be able to fake being an American investor. Story 2. Take that money and head straight to California. Buy some prime real estate in what would become Silicon Valley. Everyone would think I'm crazy buying worthless land, but I would just smile and wait. Story 3. Hopefully keep a low enough profile to dodge the Selective Service Act and end up in Korea. Buy a brand new Chevrolet 5-window for like $4,500. Then bet the rest on the Yankees to win the World Series in 1950, 1951, 1952, 1953, 1956, 1958, 1961, and 1962. Story 4. If I wake up in the 1950s at my current place, I'm in trouble. The State Security Service won't like it if someone walks around the German Democratic Republic with 50,000 in US dollars. No paperwork on top, and I'm treated like a spy. Story 5. I would have priorities. 1. Establish myself near the future home of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. I am totally going to be a part of the space race as a history tourist. Invest half the money on surefire bets. Find my ancestors and interview them thoroughly to learn more about my family tree. Somehow secure DNA samples for my future self. Speaking of my future self, I would write a guide on what to do and not do, and where to invest. I would also set up an inheritance for myself. Love and romance can be problematic, as illustrated in movies like Back to the Future. Lack of internet, healthcare knowledge, and other resources may also be challenging, but college and homes are cheap, so I would take advantage of that. Story 6. This answer greatly depends on your race and gender. I would wake up as a black woman, so I could not buy a house, a car, or have a bank account in my name yet. I would probably head to Motown and become a performer. Story 7. Get a nice union job installing steering wheels on cars in an auto factory. Buy a tidy home with a white picket fence for the wife to take care of while I am at work. Raise 2 children who will disappoint me in 16 years by becoming hippies. Retire to Florida in 1987 with a pension. Die of a heart attack in 1999 after a life of chain smoking, drinking, golfing, and giving zero thought to anything. Pure bliss. Story 8. Being a woman with no papers in 1950? Honestly, I would head to Hollywood. There are plenty of aspiring actresses there, so I would not stand out too much. I would use part of that money to create a new identity, then invest the rest in real estate around Los Angeles. Those properties would be worth millions today. Story 9. Go to the cemetery, find a child who died about the right time. Take the name and apply for a replacement birth certificate. Rent a house under that name with utilities. Apply for a driver's license. Pay someone to witness a statutory declaration and use all your accumulated documents to get a passport and a bank account. Get a job under this name. Buy International Business Machines Corporation stock. Story 10. Take 10,000 to live. Get a nice paying job. Invest the other 40,000 into International Business Machines until around 1980, then invest it into a few young and risky startups called Microsoft and Apple Computers. Cash out in the year 2000, wait a year, and reinvest into Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia, then retire. Then move some of my massive fortune and buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in 2009. With my obscene fortune, I would then start a charity, sway markets, buy politicians, and craft a better future. Story 11. Contrary to most of the people here that want to invest and get rich, I want to meet a couple of people. I'd love to have a conversation with James Baldwin. Story 12. Switch the briefcase for something less conspicuous for a 20-year-old woman of my coloring to be carrying around, and then straight to my grandparents' house. I can prove to my grandmother that I'm family in an instant, and by the 1950s, I'll have at least one great uncle who can hook me up with identification and help me hide the cash as soon as possible, because having my own money would be a great way for a woman to be declared insane, institutionalized, and drained financially back then. I'll also have some great uncles that break kneecaps for pleasure and profit. Might point them in the right directions to make some timeline corrections. Maybe my granddad could buy me a house with some of the cash, but I couldn't actually own property, so I'd likely stay with the family anyway to help raise my mom and uncles. I'd protect those babies from everything and everyone who hurt them in this timeline, and I'd make sure my mom got a university education and never married her first husband. Story 13. Be sent to the insane asylum because the $50,000 is in $2025 and the people would think I am crazy, dressed in weird clothes, and blather on about all the future stuff. Story 14. Go to Hollywood and write for television and movies. You could essentially emulate all the greats and become the most prolific writer of the 20th century. You're altering the timeline anyway, so you might as well be comfortable and successful. $50,000 would be around $650,000 back then. Enough to buy a place in the Hollywood Hills, a typewriter, and a lot of coffees at cafes while trying to bump into film producers to pitch movies. Story 15. I'm not an American, but I guess I'd start by finding someone who died at birth 20 years ago in graveyards and cemeteries and adopt their identity. It was much easier to get an identity back then, and you wouldn't have to buy a fake ID. What's my aim here? To make as much money as possible? That seems to just turn someone into an insufferable person over time, so I'd personally aim for a comfortable life. A house would be the place to start. Assuming my transplantation to this time doesn't change history, there are certain places to avoid at certain times. 1951. Avoid Kansas and Missouri. Flood. 1953. Avoid Waco, Texas. Tornado. 1957. Avoid Fargo, Nevada. Tornado. 1960. Avoid Hawaii and Alaska. Tsunami. 1964. Avoid Hawaii and Alaska again, along with Oregon and California. Tsunami. 1965. Avoid Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, and Idaho. Tornado. 1969. Avoid Alabama, Mississippi, and Virginia. Hurricane. 1970. Avoid Lubbock, Texas. Hurricane. 1971. Avoid Los Angeles. Earthquake. 1972. Avoid Rapid City, South Dakota. Flood. 1975. Avoid many places. Super tornado outbreak. 1976. Avoid Colorado. Flood. 1977. Avoid New York. Blizzard. You get the idea. Try and find a place where you can be undisturbed until around 2010, assuming a life expectancy of 80 years old. Find some insurance company that will fully cover your health insurance for as many years in advance as possible at 1950s prices. For ongoing income, either try and be the best landlord I can be, or if I don't have the finances remaining, then find some unassuming job that pays reasonably and regularly. Stay away from being an expert or genius in new technology, as it will be noticed, and the military will ask questions and delve into my background. That fake identity from the beginning will probably be uncovered, and that would be a very bad thing. Story 16. 50,000 US dollars in a then socialist country where it was forbidden to buy foreign currency without a permit and had an austerity policy in effect. I wonder if it would make the guys at the black market suspicious about me. Story 17. 20 again? I never was 20. I'm 18. To actually answer the question, if I were in my own country, I would just go to the police, ask them to contact the tax agency, and have them register me. My country was quite poor up until the World Wars, and the economy didn't start to boom until afterward, meaning a lot of people weren't properly registered, so it's probably not more complicated than that. Then I would get myself an apartment and a factory job, and make clever investments with the rest. I would try to fight for what I believe is right and try to get it accepted into society earlier. Story 18. Echoing the other comments, I would first set myself up with a fake identity, and from there I would get a passport and a house, car, etc. It wouldn't be ostentatious, but it would be a decent home in a decent area. Not sure where exactly, but somewhere nice and warm. I would also buy a factory and start my own television manufacturing company. I know that televisions go from black and white to color to flat screen to digital to high definition, and then on to smart/internet. My television manufacturing company would always be at the forefront of new technology. My television company would somehow always be able to foresee where the industry was going and create world-class products at affordable prices for the American family. Why televisions? Well, sir, at the start of the 1950s, televisions were available but prohibitively expensive, but in the early 1950s, there was a real boom in them entering American households. I'd want to be at the start of that boom. I wouldn't ever design and come up with the new technology. I would leave that to the people who actually invented high definition or surround sound or streaming. I would only ever keep up with the latest inventions. I'd make a lot of money. I'd make a lot of people happy. My wife, Marilyn Monroe, would make me very happy. Story 19. In Europe, try to bribe or buy a ticket aboard a ship that goes to the United States or Canada, and with my money, buy an identification and start investing in real estate and the stock market. Story 20. Well, if the stories I hear about the old days are true, all I would need is a firm handshake and I would have any job I wanted in the world. Honestly, though, it would depend if I was stuck in the 1950s or coming home. If I'm stuck, it would basically be a free $50,000. If I'm coming home, I would buy a nice lot, put only a garage on it, and fill it with old cars from the lot that will be rare. Then just wait until I'm back. Story 21. Identifiable paperwork in the 1950s was not really that common. In the 1950s, you didn't even need paperwork to immigrate to the United States. Back in the 1950s, you could simply go to a graveyard, find a name you liked, and by going through the correct branches of identification, you could have a new birth certificate and whatever else you needed. $50,000 in the 1950s? That's about $600,000 in today's world. Do whatever you want. Story 22. Post-war Germany. I wonder how convincing it would be to say that all paperwork was lost in the war, though the huge amount of American money would be suspicious. It would be like people suspecting me of killing American soldiers or attempting identity theft. Story 23. I'm a woman with basically no buying power, so I get myself to the nicest hotel that I can find and book a decent suite indefinitely. Apparently, suites were about $5 to $20 per night, so I can stay there for quite a while before my cash starts to run out. There's food there, a roof over my head, and a shower. I can then go out and get myself a new wardrobe of clothes for the era. From there, I can get my bearings and figure out how to get back to the year 2025. Story 24. Buy stocks that went up in value, such as Xerox. Do the same for buying property that increased in value. Make some sales and put the profits into my bank accounts. Story 25. Buy a small house north of Miami, a cheap car, and then start buying up beachfront property as far north as I can. My parents did this after World War II in what is now Hollywood. After 2 years, they sold it off, saying that nothing is ever going to happen around that area. Story 26. Find a way to pass as a man, I guess, would have to be the first thing. So, a fake identification and whatever else like that Lauren Bacall movie. Then maybe smoke a cigarette in a movie theater and buy a big old convertible and drive Route 66. Then move to Southern California and get into surfing empty breaks. Always with my shirt on. Story 27. Just like Back to the Future did. Send a letter to myself at this specific point in time and my current location detailing where the money is stored and the procedure to access it. Story 28. Important location. Where, if it's behind the Iron Curtain, I risk being executed as a spy, and even $50,000 won't help. If it's in the United States, first thing, find a flea market to buy a proper backpack of that era and put the rest of the money there. Strolling with a suitcase can raise suspicion easily. Story 29. Probably get picked up for being mixed ethnicity, jailed, and given the old serve or prison. The $50,000 gets disappeared by the local police department, and I get to spend the next 5 years humping around Korea or dead on a Korean battlefield fighting Chinese regulars. Story 31. Locate the local underground criminals to get a fake identification. Buy a house and a decent college degree. Invest the rest into Coca-Cola. Live the rest of my life as a baby boomer. Story 31. It depends, but I think I would invest most of the money and then take off to Mexico for a while. Oh, and around 1987, I would go confront my dad for leaving us, or at least I would try. I would be pretty old by then. Story 32. I would use it to bet on all the sports, then become extremely rich and powerful. Always be on the lookout for a crazy old scientist or a kid who might show up asking too many questions. Story 33. I'm a Brit in Luxembourg, and at 20, I looked older than I was, so I could probably pass as having served in the Battle of the Bulge in some capacity. To deal with the money, I would probably have to weasel my way into the British-controlled part of West Germany, steal a dead soldier's identity, and set up a bank account in his name. Since I would be introducing a nice sum of American money into the West German economy, hopefully, no one would ask too many questions about where it came from. Story 34. Try to get a job, realize I am not good at anything that is not computer-related, and get arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation for having $50,000 that I cannot explain the origin of and sounding an awful lot like a communist. Story 35. A black man in 1950 with $50,000 in a suitcase and no identification is not going to go far without suspicion, but I would have definitely moved to France after the war and bought a vineyard close to a great location. North Africa was also probably a good place to build a house, I guess, too. Story 36. It's 1950. No way I make it out of that alive, right? I'm a brown person with a suitcase filled with money, no house, and no identifiable paperwork, and no one I can trust. The first police officer to see me is going to kill me,